Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we have got a really fascinating mix of sources
Oh, yeah.
for you. So we're talking market trends,
Okay.
earnings surprises, and even a little dash of international intrigue.
Sounds good.
We're going to be navigating through
Yeah.
a lot of information today, but we will make sure
Okay.
to
Well,
highlight
we're
the
start-
most relevant
That's
insights
the
for
first
you.
round, for sure.
We'll explore how the market reacts to news, especially
Yeah.
in tech and retail sectors, and even touch on the relationship between business and social issues.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Okay, so let's just dive right in.
Okay.
The market, specifically the S&P 500, showing signs
Uh-huh.
of potential weakness
Okay.
after hitting those record highs.
Right.
Analysts are predicting a possible pullback, but not a full-blown recession.
I see.
What do you think is driving this uncertainty?
Well, it seems like there's a few factors at play here.
Okay.
I think concerns about rising inflation,
Mm-hmm.
the possibility of new tariffs,
Right.
and just kind of a dip in consumer confidence.
Yeah.
These are all contributing to this sort of cautious outlook that we're seeing.
So with this uncertainty, it makes sense that analysts are suggesting this potential shift
Yep.
from growth stocks to more of those stable value stocks.
Yeah, absolutely.
What would you say are the key characteristics of these value stocks?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Especially for someone looking to kind of navigate this potential shift.
Yeah, I think you'd want to look for companies with strong financials,
Mm-hmm.
solid cash flow,
Okay.
and potentially those offering dividend payouts.
Okay.
Those factors tend to offer a bit more stability
Right.
during times of market volatility.
Speaking of navigating uncertainty,
Yeah.
Walmart just released their Q4 earnings report,
Okay.
and it's a little bit of a mixed bag,
Really?
They beat earnings estimates, which is great,
Uh-huh.
but their guidance for 2026
Okay.
was softer than expected.
I see.
And this actually sent their stock down in pre-market trading.
Oh, wow.
What do you make of this?
Yeah.
Especially, given that
Right.
on the surface, it seems like they had a pretty good quarter.
Yeah, it really highlights this disconnect
Mm-hmm.
that can sometimes exist between a company's operational performance
Right.
and how the market reacts.
Yeah.
So while Walmart exceeded those earnings expectations,
Yeah.
their cautious outlook for 2026 is really spooking investors.
Okay.
They cited concerns about the resilience of the U.S. consumer,
Uh-huh.
and that obviously has implications for their future growth.
Do you think this is a justified reaction from the market, or is this a little bit of an overreaction
Yeah.
to what might just be short-term uncertainty?
Right.
Because they did mention, attracting higher income shoppers,
Uh-huh.
and their same-day delivery service is performing well.
Okay.
Not to mention they're planning an IPO for their fintech business in India.
Interesting.
A lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
That's the key question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's about weighing those short-term risks
Right.
against that long-term potential.
Mm-hmm.
Walmart is clearly making strategic moves to adapt and diversify.
Yeah.
But those broader economic concerns
Right.
are definitely casting a shadow over their prospects.
And it's interesting how this concern about the U.S. consumer seems to be
Yep.
impacting different companies in different ways.
Absolutely.
Take Palantir, for example.
Okay.
Their stock plummeted recently,
Oh, wow.
facing a double whammy.
Oh, no.
Their CEO's plan to sell a large chunk of his shares,
Okay.
and those potential defense budget cuts
Ooh.
looming on the horizon.
Interesting.
So Palantir is particularly vulnerable to those defense budget cuts because a significant portion of their revenue,
Yeah.
around 66%, comes from the U.S. government,
Uh-huh.
with defense contracts playing a major role.
I see.
So any talk of reduced spending in that area directly impacts their perceived value.
Right. That makes sense.
You mentioned the CEO's plan to sell
Yeah.
a significant amount of his shares.
Uh-huh.
This, coupled with the potential budget cuts,
Yeah.
seems like a recipe for disaster.
Right.
Could this signal a lack of confidence from the CEO himself, or
It's a good question.
are there other possible interpretations of this move?
Well, CEOs sell shares for a variety of reasons, right?
Mhm.
It could be for personal financial planning,
Okay.
diversification of their portfolio,
Right.
even charitable contributions.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily signal a lack of faith in the company's future.
Okay.
However,
Right.
the timing in conjunction with those potential budget cuts
Yeah.
does raise from eyebrows and contributes to sort of that market anxiety.
So it's more the combination of events
Yeah,
rather than the CEO's actions alone that
exactly.
are causing this reaction.
Yeah, it creates a narrative.
Right.
And perception plays a huge role in market movements.
Okay, so we have Walmart navigating this cautious consumer landscape.
Right.
And then we have Palantir facing a potential hit to its primary revenue stream.
Oh, yeah.
Now let's move on to Nvidia, a
Uh,
country that's been riding high on the AI wave.
for sure.
Their earnings are coming up soon,
Right?
and there's a lot of anticipation, but also some uncertainty swirling around them.
Yeah, I think see that.
The market is cautiously optimistic,
Mm.
but there's an expected swing of 8.4%,
Wow.
either up or down, after their earnings release.
So big swing.
So this reflects the uncertainty surrounding both their performance
Right.
and the broader market conditions.
Yeah, for sure.
What are you most interested in hearing from them during their earnings call?
Yeah, that's a good question.
What do you think will be the key indicators of their future success,
Uh-huh.
especially given this current market climate?
I'll be listening closely to their commentary on the gaming and data center markets.
Okay,
Those are key growth areas for Nvidia, but they're also facing increasing competition.
right.
So their outlook on those segments will provide valuable insights
Okay,
into their ability to maintain momentum.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
And of course, there's the elephant in the room.
What's that?
Those reports about potential sanction invasion by Chinese companies
Right?
funneling Nvidia chips through Singapore.
Oh, wow.
Um, do you think this will come up during their earnings call, and how might it affect
Yeah.
their future prospects?
It's certainly a possibility. I think they'll likely face questions
Right.
about how they're ensuring compliance with sanctions
Mm-hmm.
and what steps they're taking to prevent future violations.
Yeah.
So their response to this issue could have significant implications
Right.
for investor confidence
Okay.
and their ability to operate in key markets.
So from navigating a cautious consumer landscape
Right.
to potential budget cuts
Uh-huh.
and sanction innovation, it seems like companies are facing a whole new set of challenges in this current climate.
It's a complex and ever-changing landscape.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so fascinating to analyze.
Now let's shift gears and talk about a technology that's even more mind-bending than AI,
What?
quantum computing.
Right.
Microsoft is jumping into the race
Really?
with their new Magenta chip,
Wow.
and this has generated quite a buzz.
Yeah, I could see why.
What's so special about this chip and Microsoft's entry into this space?
I think their entry is significant
Okay.
because they're a major player with vast resources.
Mm-hmm.
And their approach is quite unique, actually.
No.
They're focusing on these topological qubits,
Uh-huh.
which they believe will
Okay.
be more stable
Right?
and less prone to errors than other types of qubits.
Interesting.
So this could be a game changer if their approach proves successful.
And this move by Microsoft has sent ripples through the stocks
Oh, wow.
of established quantum players
Okay.
like IonQ
Uh-huh.
and Rigetti Computing.
Right?
They both saw significant swings after Microsoft's announcement.
Wow, that's interesting.
It's interesting how the actions of one company can create
Yeah.
such a ripple effect throughout an entire industry.
It really highlights how
Yeah.
closely intertwined these companies and technologies are.
Right.
Microsoft's entry is adding another layer of competition
Mm-hmm.
to an already intense race.
For sure.
Investors are trying to figure out
Right.
how this is going to reshape the landscape
Mm-hmm.
and who will ultimately emerge as the leader.
Speaking of winners and losers, let's touch on a few other notable movers
Okay,
in the market.
that's good.
Airbnb's stock surged
Really?
after a strong earnings report.
Wow.
And Exos Inc., an electric vehicle company,
Okay,
is gaining attention for its new sales and administration hub.
I see.
And then there's Herbalife Nutrition.
Uh-huh.
Their stock surged due to a combination of
Okay.
a strong earnings beat
Right.
and something called a short squeeze.
A short squeeze.
Yeah.
What is that?
Can you explain what a short squeeze is?
Yeah,
Especially for someone who might not be familiar
Exactly.
with that term.
right.
Why did it have such a dramatic impact on Herbalife's stock price?
Sure. So a short squeeze happens when a stock that's been heavily bet against,
Okay.
meaning investors are betting it'll go down,
Right.
starts to rise in price instead.
Okay.
This forces those who bet against the stock to buy shares to cover their losses,
Oh, I see.
which further drives up the price.
Oh, wow.
So it can create this kind of snowball effect.
So we've got a lot of companies trying to adapt
Uh-huh.
and navigate this uncertain market,
Right.
from established players like Walmart and Nvidia
Yeah,
to those breaking into new spaces like Microsoft with quantum computing.
exactly.
But amidst all this market talk,
Uh-huh.
it's important to remember that business doesn't exist in a vacuum.
No, it doesn't.
There are social and cultural forces at play as well.
For sure.
And our sources today touch upon a really interesting example of this.
Okay.
The critique of rainbow capitalism.
Rainbow capitalism. Okay.
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
You know, we often see companies engaging in these
Right.
very public displays of support for the LGBTQ plus community
Mm-hmm.
during Pride Month. But then the question becomes,
Right.
is this genuine allyship or simply a marketing tactic?
Exactly.
Right. It's easy to slap a rainbow on your logo for a month.
Yeah.
But what are these companies actually doing
Uh-huh.
to support the LGBTQ plus community throughout the
Yeah.
year? This critique challenges us to look
Yeah.
beyond the surface and
Absolutely.
consider the substance behind these displays of support.
It's about moving beyond performative allyship
Mm-hmm.
and towards real meaningful action.
Right.
Consumers are becoming more discerning,
Yeah.
and they're demanding authenticity from the brands they support.
Yeah.
They want to see companies putting their money where their mouth is, so to speak.
Absolutely. This isn't just about optics anymore.
No.
It's about genuine commitment
Uh-huh.
and tangible action.
Exactly.
This makes me think about Walmart's strategy
Yeah.
to attract higher income shoppers.
Right.
Do you think this could be related to a growing awareness among consumers,
Uh-huh.
particularly in that demographic about a company's social stances and actions?
That's a really insightful connection.
Yeah.
It's certainly possible
Mm-hmm.
that consumers, especially those with more disposable income,
Right.
are factoring a company's social responsibility into their purchasing decisions.
Yeah.
So this adds another layer of complexity
Right.
to Walmart's strategy,
Mm-hmm.
and it really highlights the interconnectedness of business, social values,
Yeah.
and consumer behavior.
This idea that business and social issues
Mhm.
are increasingly intertwined really resonates with me.
Yeah.
It makes analyzing these companies and their actions
Right.
so much more interesting.
I completely agree.
Yeah,
It's not just about numbers
right,
and financial performance anymore.
right.
It's about understanding the cultural and social context
Mm-hmm.
in which these companies operate
Right.
and how those factors influence their strategies
Yeah.
and ultimately their success.
Now, before we get back to the specifics
Yeah.
of individual companies,
Yep.
let's take a quick look at the global stage.
Right.
Because our sources also touch upon
Uh-huh.
some international developments
Okay.
that could have significant economic implications.
Got it.
There are rumblings of potential conflict in Europe,
I see.
as well as some concerning developments in China.
Right.
These geopolitical events can have ripple effects throughout the global economy.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's important to be aware of them,
Absolutely.
right? The world is incredibly interconnected,
Mm-hmm.
and those geopolitical events can certainly impact the markets and
Right.
individual companies.
For sure.
Speaking of impacts,
Yeah.
let's talk back into Walmart
Okay.
and unpack their good news, bad news,
Right.
earnings report a bit further.
Let's do it.
What were the specific numbers that stood out to you?
Okay.
Both positive and negative.
Well, on the positive side,
Mm-hmm.
their Q4 adjusted earnings per share came in at 66 cents,
Okay.
beating the estimated 64 cents.
All right, so that's good.
Their sales also exceeded expectations,
Okay.
reaching $18.6 billion compared to the projected $18.01 billion.
So based on those numbers alone,
Mhm.
it seems like a pretty solid quarter.
Yeah.
But then their guidance for 2026 paints a little bit of a different picture.
Right.
What did they say specifically
Yeah.
that caused this kind of negative reaction from
Oh.
the market?
Well, their CFO, John David Rainey,
Okay.
told Dow Jones
Mm-hmm.
that their guidance is conservative
Okay.
due to that uncertain economic climate.
Uh-huh.
They're particularly concerned about the potential impact of tariffs,
Right.
which could increase costs for consumers
Yeah.
and potentially dampen spending.
So it seems like that weakening U.S. consumer narrative we talked about earlier
Right.
is at the heart of their cautious outlook.
Exactly.
This makes me think about their strategy to attract higher income shoppers.
Yeah.
Do you think that strategy could help mitigate some of the risks
Mhm.
associated with a potentially weaker consumer base overall?
That's a really smart observation.
Yeah.
If Walmart can successfully tap into that higher income demographic,
Okay.
which tends to be less impacted by economic fluctuations,
Right.
it could potentially offset some of the losses
Yeah.
they might experience from a broader slowdown in consumer spending.
So it's about diversification and finding pockets of resilience
Exactly.
within the market.
It's about adapting and finding those opportunities for growth,
Mm-hmm.
even with challenging conditions.
It also makes me wonder how their private label business
Uh-huh.
might play into this.
Yeah.
Couldn't that be a source of strength?
Right.
If tariffs do indeed drive up prices
Mhm.
and consumers become more price sensitive.
That's a great point.
Yeah,
Walmart's private label brands are often priced lower than national brands.
right.
So they could become even more appealing
Yeah.
to budget-conscious consumers if tariffs lead to broader price increases.
Okay, so we've got Walmart trying to navigate this
Right.
cautious consumer landscape,
Uh-huh.
and then we have Palantir facing
Yeah.
potential defense budget cuts.
Okay.
Let's dig a little deeper into Palantir's situation.
Sounds good.
What exactly do we know about these potential budget cuts, and how are they impacting the company's outlook?
Well, the details of the defense budget
Right.
are still being debated, so there's a lot of uncertainty.
Okay.
However,
Right.
some analysts predict a reduction in spending
Mm-hmm.
on certain types of military technology,
Mm-hmm.
which could directly impact Palantir's government contracts.
And it seems like that uncertainty
Yeah.
is driving a lot of the negativity
Mm-hmm.
surrounding Palantir.
Right,
It's not just the potential budget cuts themselves,
right.
but the lack of clarity about what those cuts might look like and how they will be implemented.
You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Uncertainty breeds fear in the market.
Right,
Investors hate not knowing,
right.
and that often leads to more dramatic reactions
Yeah.
than if they had concrete information to work with.
This makes me think about the CEO's stock sale again.
Yeah,
Was this a savvy move to get ahead of a potential downturn?
Right.
Or was it just bad timing that fueled this perception of instability?
it's impossible to know for sure,
Yeah.
but it certainly adds to the narrative of uncertainty.
And then you have Jim Cramer urging retail investors to buy Palantir stock,
Oh, wow.
which some might see as a sign that the stock is actually headed
Oh, no.
for further decline.
Oh,
It's a bit of a mess.
the Kramer effect is definitely a real phenomenon.
Yeah.
And it often adds to the volatility of a stock's price.
So for someone trying to understand Palantir's future,
Yeah,
it seems like there's a lot of moving pieces.
right.
What are the key things you would recommend watching
Yes.
to get a better sense of how this is all going to play out?
Well, the upcoming defense budget will be a major indicator
Okay.
if the proposed cuts materialize.
Mm-hmm.
It'll put pressure on Palantir to diversify their revenue streams
Right.
and demonstrate their value proposition beyond the defense sector.
So it's not proving they're not a one-trick pony.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They need to convince investors that they can adapt and thrive even if their government contracts are reduced.
And they also need to address those concerns about insider selling and stock dilution.
Right.
It's great that they're conducting stock buybacks,
Uh-huh.
but they need to regain investor trust
Oh.
if they want to see sustained growth.
Absolutely. Trust is crucial in the market.
Yeah.
And once it's eroded,
Yeah.
it could be very difficult to rebuild.
So it seems like Palantir is at a crossroads.
Yeah.
They have this incredibly powerful technology,
Uh-huh.
but they need to navigate these challenges effectively
Right.
to realize their full potential.
High-stakes game.
Yeah.
And the next few months will be critical for them.
Now let's shift gears again
Okay.
and talk about Nvidia.
Sounds good.
Another tech giant facing its own set of challenges.
Yeah, I could see that.
Nvidia is a fascinating case study because
Yeah.
they've been incredibly successful,
Uh-huh.
riding the waves of AI and gaming enthusiasm.
Right.
But now they're facing headwinds
Right.
from multiple directions,
Oh, wow.
from the potential market correction to
Right.
increased competition
Right.
to those reports of potential sanction violations.
That's true.
Let's start with those looming earnings.
Okay.
We talked about the expected swing of 8.4% either way,
Right.
which reflects the current market uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
But what are the underlying factors that could drive
Yeah.
their performance one way or the other?
Well, their performance in the gaming and data center markets will be crucial.
Okay.
Gaming has been a significant driver of their growth,
Right.
but there are concerns about a potential slowdown
Yeah.
in that market.
And the data center market is where they're facing the most intense competition, right?
Right.
Companies like Google and Microsoft are developing their own AI chips,
Uh-huh.
which could challenge NVIDIA's dominance in that space.
It's a rapidly evolving market,
Yeah.
and Nvidia needs to stay ahead of the curve
Mm-hmm.
to maintain its leadership position.
And then you have the elephant in the room,
Right.
those reports of potential sanction evasion.
Yeah.
How do you see this issue playing out, and what impact could it have on NVIDIA's future?
It's a delicate situation.
Yeah.
Nvidia needs to balance its business interests
Right.
with its legal obligations.
Uh-huh.
They can't afford to alienate Chinese customers,
Right.
which represent a significant portion of their revenue.
Yeah.
But they also can't afford to run afoul of U.S. sanctions.
So it's a tightrope walk.
Yeah.
Their response to this issue
Uh-huh.
could have significant implications for both
Right.
their reputation and their bottom line.
Ab-
Investors will be watching closely
Mm-hmm.
to see how they handle this.
For sure.
Now let's move on to another topic that's been in
Okay.
the news lately.
All right.
The potential for a bird flu outbreak
Oh, wow.
to disrupt global health
Uh-huh.
and economic stability.
Okay.
The situation in China is definitely concerning.
Right.
We're seeing reports of rising infections,
Uh-huh.
quarantine zones,
Okay.
and makeshift hospitals being built.
Wow.
This suggests that the situation could be more serious
Yeah.
than initially thought.
I see.
And this comes at a time when the world is still grappling
Uh-huh.
with the lingering effects of the COVID-19 pandemic.
It's true.
We saw how quickly a global health crisis can
Yeah.
disrupt supply chains
For sure.
and impact the global economy.
Absolutely.
It's a reminder that we're living in an increasingly interconnected world,
Right.
and that events in one part of the world can have
Yeah.
far-reaching consequences.
Absolutely.
So what are the key things we should be watching for
Yeah.
as this situation unfolds?
Right?
What are the potential implications
Oh.
for the global economy and for individual companies?
Well, we need to monitor the spread of the virus,
Okay.
the effectiveness of containment measures,
Right.
and the potential impact
Uh-huh.
on trade and travel.
And of course, there's the human cost to consider
Absolutely.
as well.
Any outbreak of this nature
Yeah.
has the potential to cause widespread suffering
Mm-hmm.
and loss of life.
So it's a situation that deserves our attention and concern.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, from the potential risks of a
Mhm.
bird flu outbreak,
Mm-hmm.
let's turn our attention to a company that's navigating a different kind of disruption,
Okay.
the shift towards electric vehicles.
Oh, interesting.
Exos Inc. is attracting attention with their new sales and administration hub,
Uh-huh.
signaling their commitment to this rapidly growing market.
Okay.
Exos is focused on developing electric trucks and delivery vans for commercial fleets,
I see.
which seems like a pretty smart move
Right.
given the increasing demand for
Right.
sustainable transportation solutions.
It's a market that's ripe for disruption
Yeah,
as companies look for ways to reduce their carbon footprint
right.
and meet sustainability goals.
And as governments around the world implement policies to promote the adoption of electric vehicles,
Right.
we're likely to see even more growth
Mm-hmm.
in this sector.
It's definitely a trend worth watching.
Okay, so we got Exos betting on the future of electric vehicles,
Right.
which brings us back to this idea of companies adapting
Uh-huh.
to a changing world.
Uh-huh.
We talked about Walmart's efforts to attract
Yeah.
higher income shoppers,
Right.
Palantir's need to diversify
Yeah.
its revenue streams,
Right.
and Nvidia's challenge of maintaining its leadership
Yeah.
in the face of increasing competition.
It seems like adaptability and a willingness to evolve
Mm-hmm.
are key
Yeah,
in today's rapidly changing business landscape.
absolutely. The companies that can anticipate
Uh-huh.
and respond to shifts in technology, consumer behavior,
Right.
and the global environment will be the ones that thrive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The companies that can anticipate and respond to those shifts in technology and consumer behavior and the global environment will be the ones that thrive.
This deep dive has covered a lot of ground, from market trends and earnings reports to quantum computing and the complexities of corporate social responsibility.
Right. A lot going on.
What do you think are the most important takeaways for our listener?
Well, I think first the market is showing signs of potential weakness.
Okay.
While this doesn't necessarily mean a crash is imminent, it does suggest we might be seeing a shift from the recent bull market.
Right.
So, it's important to be aware of the factors
Mm-hmm.
driving this uncertainty,
Right.
such as rising inflation, potential tariffs, and changes in consumer confidence,
Yeah.
and adjust your investment strategies accordingly.
So perhaps a bit more caution is warranted at this point rather than blindly buying every dip.
Exactly. Second earnings season has revealed a mixed drag of results,
Okay.
with some companies exceeding expectations but issuing cautious guidance, while others are facing more significant headwinds.
Right.
It's a good reminder to always look beyond the headlines and dig deeper into the numbers, the guidance, and the specific context of each company before making any investment decisions.
Don't just follow the hype.
Yeah,
Do your own research.
precisely. Our third takeaway is that the competition in the tech world is heating up. Microsoft's entry into the quantum computing race is a prime example.
Right.
This increased competition will likely lead to faster innovation, which is ultimately good for consumers, but it also creates more complexity and potentially more risk for investors.
So it becomes even more crucial to carefully assess which companies are best positioned
Right.
to succeed in this increasingly competitive environment.
Absolutely. And finally, the discussion about rainbow capitalism underscores a crucial point.
Right.
Consumers are becoming more discerning and demanding authenticity from the brands they support.
Yeah, for sure.
Companies can no longer get away with superficial displays of social responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
They need to demonstrate genuine commitment and tangible action to resonate with today's consumers, especially younger generations.
So what does all this mean for you, the listener, as you navigate this complex and ever-changing landscape?
Well, stay informed, be adaptable, And don't be afraid to challenge your assumptions.
Okay.
The world is changing rapidly, and the ability to adapt is essential for success both in investing and in life.
This deep dive has given you a glimpse into some of the key trends and narratives
Yeah.
shaping the business world.
Right.
Now it's up to you to continue exploring, questioning, and diving deeper.
Remember, even the most informed analysis is just a starting point.
Right.
It's your critical thinking, your own research, and your willingness to engage with these issues that will ultimately lead you to the insights that matter most for your decisions and your life.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive.
Sounds good.
We've explored a lot of fascinating information today.
Yeah, we did.
But the conversation doesn't end here.
Right?
As you continue to learn and explore,
Uh-huh.
consider this. Given the rapid pace of technological advancements we're witnessing,
Okay.
how might quantum computing not only reshape industries, but also redefine the very nature of work and the skills you'll need to thrive in the future?
Yeah, how might quantum computing not only reshape industries, but also redefine the very nature of work and the skills you'll need to thrive in the future?
It's definitely something to think about.
Absolutely.
It's a big question,
For sure.
but a really important one.
Yeah.
And on that note, I think we'll wrap up this deep dive.
Sounds good.
We've explored
Yeah.
a lot of fascinating information
We
today.
sure did.
But the conversation doesn't end here.
Right.
So keep exploring,
Yeah.
keep questioning, and keep diving deeper.
Until next time.
Thanks for joining us.
It's been fun.